Hi, it's Dave Dickinson with Bankers Compliance Consulting. Let's talk about Regulation B's requirement for you to get joint intent documentation. Now, in a previous video, I had talked about who was applicants and who isn't and what can you make them sign, etc. Let's assume that you've watched that and understand the definition of applicant, that it's anybody that is or may become contractually liable. Next, we have to get joint intent documentation. When? At the time of application. Now, this is not a completed application. I like to insert a word here that I'll admit is not in the reg, but it's the initial application. Why do I say that? Because it says at the time of application. Reg B defines an application as an oral or written request for credit. It defines a completed application as when you have everything that you need to make a decision. So we're not talking about then, we're talking about earlier. I would say from that initial discussion, that then earlier the better is when you want to do this. And you might be able to squabble and argue that you don't have an app just yet, but it never hurts to get this sooner than later. Now, you need to have some type of documentation that indicates this is what they wanted to do, not what you're doing or twisting their arms. And obviously, if you get them to sign applications, that is sufficient. Those boxes that we see on the top of applications are nice, but they are not required. Nowhere in the reg does it say that you have to get those boxes marked. It says that that is a way to do that. But think about it. If someone signs an application, are they not applying? Who would sign an application, you might argue? And in fact, the Federal Reserve, who wrote this regulation, has put out several memos that indicate a signed application is sufficient to support intent to apply for joint credit. Again, if you got the boxes, might as well get that. But maybe you don't have a traditional application form. Well, there's these things like a joint intent form that you see up on your screen right now that we have designed that's a way for you to be able to get the customer to sign something when they aren't signing maybe a traditional application form. And last, it could just be loan officer documentation. Now think about this. Someone's calling you and they're applying and you're receiving their application or their request for credit over the phone. How are you going to get them to sign anything? And it has to be done at the time of application. And so if the loan officer will just simply document, Dave called and said he and his wife wish to apply for a car loan, that is sufficient to meet this requirement. Now that's the compliance box, if you will. I would recommend that if you ever see the applicants, that you have them also sign a joint intent documentation form like on the bottom of your screen. But that isn't a requirement for compliance. It's more of a civil liability. And maybe you want to just say that it's kind of a belt and suspender method. We just want to say, is this really what you wanted to do? This is what I understood from the phone call. Please sign here indicating this is what you wanted to do. That would tie a bow all around this. There's a lot to joint intent, and it often gets criticized by examiners. I hope this clarifies the rules for you. Thanks for watching.